Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're having a look at Blood and Venom variant back issues number 5. This is the initial completion guide. I have popped together a wee infographic to go along with this guide. A link will be in the description below. If you do find it helpful, please give us a wee comment letting me know. I would love some feedback on the infographic and this video in general. So starting off with the quest rewards, what is involved? So initial completion, we are looking at a rank 4 to 5 gem. This is the first time Kabam has popped this sort of reward into the initial completion rewards. It is normally reserved for the 100% rewards, so I think that's a fantastic move, especially for progressing players who are looking to get that next rank 5 or maybe even the first rank 5. This quest difficulty isn't that hard. It's not like it's compared to variant number 1, which was really hard at the time of being launched. So going with this rank 4 to 5 gem, we do have the 10,000 5-star shards, a full T5 basic catalyst, we have 5,000 6-star shards broken up, 2,000 from the event quest rewards, and 1,000 in each of the chapters. We also have 1 million gold, along with 200,000 more gold broken down into each of the chapters, much like the 6-star shards. The last thing we have for the completions is a 2 to 3 rank up gem from chapters 1, 2 and 3, which is again a great reward because of the lack of T4 basics and T1 alphas, especially for endgame players. Seems to be a big shortage of them at the moment. So jumping into the quest, we're going to jump into number 1 first. It is Captain Marvel OG. I do have a team set up from when I did the middle path earlier on today. I've got Morningstar, Symbiote Supreme, Magic, Doctor Doom and Venom the Duck. So this chapter is not locked to any specific one of the 3 classes I need. You do need hashtag Spider-Verse Heroes, Mystics or hashtag Symbiotes. The global buff in chapter 1 does benefit Spider-Verse Heroes, and we do have great power and great responsibility. So these are great responsibility as each hit that Spider-Verse champion avoids from the defenders special attacks with a miss, evade or dexterity grants him an indefinite responsibility passive. And upon reaching 100 responsibility, hashtag Spider-Verse champions convert them into a great power buff lasting 10 seconds, making their attack ignore armor and resistances and unblockable. This can be really helpful on the Captain Marvel boss that does have mighty charge. So moving on to the path. I've done 2 paths so far, but the far left is far easier than the middle one. That is because in the middle we do have Energize, Unblockable Special 1, and there is this Mojo, which is, well, he can be quite nasty, especially if you haven't fought him that often. On the left path, we only have to deal with 90% armor and strike back. Now, there are a couple of champions that I feel do benefit from this node greatly, especially seeing as the defenders aren't the toughest for the first few fights. We do have Kingpin, Punisher 2099, Bishop, War Machine, Infinity War Iron Man, and Havoc. Now, the champions I suggest to use on this path are Venom the Duck. His toxic armor off the SP2 wrecks this path. It's pretty glorious. You've also got Venom, who can remove the armor via his heavy. I've also said Morningstar and Doctor Doom. Morningstar getting wrapped up, you do have the added benefit of her souls. Number 3, you got unblockable specials. 4, you've got the perfect block chance, and at number 5 you've got the lifesteal. That can be really, really helpful. So on this path we do have 2 tricky fights. It's Infinity War Iron Man and Havoc. I would recommend relearning or just brushing up on your reparrying skills when taking this path, as doing that you just get an easy in. For Havoc especially, you can get around his plasma charges by the strike back node. You constantly getting to throw SP2s if you don't have a Venom to have a permanent armor buff. When using Venom, if you don't get an armor buff straight off the bat, get a good parry off and then heavy to refresh his buffs until you get the armor. Then you don't have to worry about Havoc's plasma charges. It makes it easy. So moving on to the boss, we have 300% health gain. Armor of 90% again. Mighty Charge, immune to debuff effects. Mystic Ward of 95%, so don't even look about nullifying her armor. And Heavy Handed, which is based off of the armor, so her specials will be hitting pretty damn hard based off the 90% armor. I used Venom the Duck to solo this boss, had a few charges, and I went for regen, fury, and power gain. I feel that's a good combination for him. So on this fight, get to an SP2, you will get toxic armor on the boss, and then you'll be doing some really, really nice damage. If you don't have Venom the Duck, again, I've said stack Spidey, you can avoid the specials with his auto evade. Also got a ramped up Morningstar works really well here, and Clairvoyant with our healing can be really helpful as well. Next quest we have here is a Gamora boss. Again, the bosses aren't the toughest in the first few chapters, only when you get to the last one does it start to get a bit troublesome. So here we've got the left path again. It is Breakthrough. I love Breakthrough. You can pretty much use any champions here on this path. So one thing to notice is this Iceman. It does do 500 a tick on Cold Snap, and if you don't have a counter, this can be a little bit troublesome. So the counters for this is Mephisto and Sasquatch. Even 4 stars can be used here. So if you don't have a 5 or 6 star Mephisto, I did use my 6 star Mephisto. 4 stars can be used, and as long as you play well, this fight is pretty straightforward. So moving on to other fights on this path, we've got Superior Iron Man, Rhino, Captain America Infinity War, Groot, and Red Skull. So the champions I've said to use here as Longshot works amazingly well on the path. The Mystics just get crumbled by his SP2 incinerates. I've also said Stealth Suit to Spidey. He absolutely destroys the 2 science champions. And Red Skull, I actually used Venom the Duck on for a bit of fun. Again, he melts the armor with his SP2. So moving on to the boss, we've got a Gamora. So it's 300% health as well as the last one. Stun immunity, Oscillate, unblockable special attacks, Power Shield, Godslayer, and critical. So Power Shield is a great note. I just have so much fun with it. Seeing those big numbers of specials is a lot of fun. I actually used a Doctor Strange. I decided to brush off my rank 5 Doctor Strange, which is normally reserved for war defense for this fight. He actually worked really well. I wish he hit like that all the time. Now, the champions I have suggested to bring in here is Magic. If you're not quite familiar with Gamora's special, you have a Magic, locking that down, you can just do the 4-hit combo and backdraft to intercept her. That does work pretty well. Then you don't have to worry about the unblockable specials, etc. Plus, with the Power Shield, she does then do silly damage, especially if she's paired up with the Morningstar synergy, which grants her extra damage based during Limbo. I've also said that Doctor Doom and Morningstar, you can ramp up on the path really easily. So you can get up to those 5 souls. You've got that heal there, especially with the stun immune. She does take a reduced amount of damage off her block because of the perfect block chance, and you can constantly heal that up via the lifesteal. She is a superb champion for this variant. I think I used her probably more than any other champion on my roster. That's it for quest number 2. Moving on to number 3. There are 2 path options here in this quest, depending if you have a high level nullifier for the Vision Arcus here. If you do have that, like a Doctor Doom, Morningstar, Magic or whatever, you can get through this really short path really simply. On this path it is Power Focus 1, Enhance Specials, and Aggression Prowess. It's pretty straightforward. Lane, you do have 2 Symbiotes, the Cosmic and the Mystic, along with a blue team Cyclops. Now the other option here, if you don't have a high level nullifier or you're not comfortable dealing with Vision Arcus, is the left hand side. You do have Fury, so they get a Fury when you hit them. It's a 10% chance. You do have Fair. Fair is fair, so whenever one of the defenders' buffs are nullified, the attacker is power locked 2.5 seconds. You also have Dulled, which reduces your crit rate by 50% by every buff on you or debuff on the opponent. So who do we have to face here? So we've got this Tech Adaptoid, We've got this tech symbiote. We have Heimdall, the mutant symbiote, Drax, Crossbones, and Silver Surfer. So none of them champions will give you a real trouble if you're not comfortable with the Vision Arcus, but that would be the path I would recommend. In terms of champions bringing in for this path, I have suggested going with Stark Spidey if you're taking the Vision Arcus path. Morningstar, you can ramp her up really easily. She does deal with the boss really well, especially if it's a rank 5 or a 6 star. Doctor Doom, he wrecks Vision Arcus, he's the perfect counter for that, so if you have him, even a 4 star can deal with it. Longshot works really well for the path, as does Dr. Voodoo. Voodoo's power control mechanics can work really well here. You could also use magic for the power control, but you will have to dodge a couple of specials in order to get to there. She won't work very well at power controlling Vision Arcus, you will just have to spam the SP1 in order to nullify him. So moving on to the boss, we have a pretty stacked Scarlet Witch here. The perfect counter here is Clairvoyant. You can use a 4 star, 5 star, whatever. It doesn't matter. She is a perfect counter because of her poison immunity. Now, we've got 300% health, Vivified, Debilitate, Aggression Cruelty, Aggression Prowess, Enhanced Special 1 and Enhanced Special 2. So you will be dodging a lot of specials during this fight. And combine that with the Debilitate node, if you do get some bad RNG and get some poison stacks, if you're not using Claire, then you're ticking for 500 a tick. It's just brutal. Your health will melt super quick. I used Morningstar in this fight. Again, I got lucky with the heal blocks and could keep up the life steal. And the fact that she has a low crit rate as well, along with a big SP1, it does help a lot. You just have to constantly dodge specials. Doctor Doom can work out really well here. He does have the high damage. However, you cannot power drain her, so don't go to an SP3 thinking you're going to have her stunned and drain her power. That is because of this Vivified node. I have seen some high level longshot gameplay on her as well. A nice solo with a 6 star rank 2, so he can be an option as well. And with that big SP2 incinerate damage, he does work pretty damn well. So moving on to quest number 4, I took this inside left channel. So first up, a Rhino with he has different node combinations to the other champions here. As he is actually part of this middle path. We do have Aspect of Evolution and Bleed Vulnerability. So Doctor Doom, Venom, Duck to nuke down this champion here. I did actually choose to use Stealth Suit Spidey for the class advantage, along with high crit rate and high crit damage he has. Now, if this fight does go on for a long time, you will get him having the massive block penetration from the Aspect Evolution node, along with increased crit resistance, combat power rate, critical rating, armor, and attack. So just be careful of that. Now the actual path here is adaptive, enhanced abilities, and recharge. Recharge is a heck of a node. It's really fun, especially if you have champions who benefit greatly from special attacks like Doctor Doom or Morningstar. So she was my champion of choice here, as I chose to build her up to take on the boss. Dr. Voodoo would work brilliantly here, especially with adaptive recharge. You can get lows stacking up from the global node, so he does work really well here. The champions we'll be facing here is a Vulture, a Skill Symbiote, Magneto Marvel Now, and a Tech Symbiote. So the only fight you need to remember, especially if you're using Doctor Doom or Morningstar, is this Magneto because of his magnetism ability. However, if you've got a Doctor Voodoo, he works fantastically here. Other champions you can use here is Symbiote Supreme and even Magic. All nullify really well. I have heard that Longshot does really well here because of the adaptive node and his nullifying ability. So moving on to the boss, we have 300% health, adaptive, arc overload, aspect of evolution, burden of might, and bleed vulnerability. Personally, I chose to use Morningstar. She does have that interaction with a Sig ability on arc overload, where she copies a buff, and you'll be healing for a good chunk, along with she reduces the regeneration rate on the opponent up to 60% at Sig 200. I have heard fantastic things about Dr. Voodoo here. Combined with the global node, he does nuke her down pretty fast. There's a couple of other champions to take into account here. We have Magic. Clairvoyant works really well at nullifying the buffs. Symbiote Supreme, he works really well with the bleed vulnerability. So just be careful if you're going to be using a champion with bleeds like Venom or Venom the Duck because of this aspect of evolution node. Much like the Rhino, a longer fight goes on, the crit rate you have will be reduced and they rely on crit rate to get bleeds on. So I tend to just use a Mystic here and get a Nullify on the regen and the adaptive node. It's a pretty straightforward fight, nothing to really worry about as long as you don't get hit quite far into the fight, as she will be doing a silly amount of damage. So up next we have chapter 3. This is all about symbiotes for the global. I chose to take this inside channel here, and the global is mitosis and genetic recalibration. So mitosis has hits on a defender, grants symbiote attackers an indefinite mitosis buff maxing up to 10 stacks. So the symbiote attackers that dash back and hold block for 1 second consume all available mitosis buffs into a genetic calibration for effects for 1 second per buff consumed, and genetic calibration reduces defender ability actually by 1000% and increases attacker buff duration by 100% and heavy attack damage by 500%. So this can work really well with Venom and Venom the Duck here. So, but on this path though, however, it is built for Doctor Doom. Even a 4-star can take it. The reason for this is because of this node, Psychic Thorns. So whenever the defender is struck by a physical attack, the attacker takes 5% of the damage dealt. Combine that with the life transfer degen, you can end up dying pretty quickly from this. However, Doctor Doom is energy based attacks, so is Doctor Voodoo, so he can work well here as well. As long as you have energy attacks, you bypass the Psychic Thorns node and you'll just be constantly healing from the life transfer. So you can just block special attacks if you need to. You don't have to evade them, don't have to do anything risky because of the life transfer node. So the champions you really want to look out here for on this path is Emma Frost, because you can't parry her, and just be careful of her specials. Remember they're inverted when dashing. And this Gilly 2099, if she goes invisible and she gets to an SP2 as well, that Spectre can wreck you pretty quickly because of the life transfer node. But apart from that, the path, as long as you have a Voodoo or a Doom, you are pretty much safe on it. Moving on to this Cosmic Spidey boss, this is probably the toughest boss so far in the whole event. We have health 300%, Spry, the best defense, 3, energize, kinetic transference, and limber. The number one option here I would suggest is Venom, because then he can't evade you. You just have to worry about the kinetic transference and specials really. Other champions you can use is power drainers, power lockers, etc. But just be wary of champions you can use is power drainers like Voodoo, Magic. Morningstar can work, but just be careful of the kinetic transference, as if she gets a perfect block on 4 charges, then the power gain from Cosmic Spidey will be pretty big. And it'll just be constantly evading. You can't parry very often, so the evades can't really be stopped. Overall, this fight isn't too tricky as long as you have a Venom. Mine is rank 4 and it's a pretty comfortable solo. I like how you don't have to worry about the evades. That is really the biggest thing you have to worry about, so that was quite nice to have him there. Even a 4-star can work at rank 5 or a rank 3 Venom. As long as you can evade the SP1s or push them to an SP2, then you should be golden. So the final quest here is a Venom Boss, and I chose to take this middle path with Outlast and buff duration of 40%, so the nodes are pretty straightforward. You'll be facing a Carnage, Star-Lord, Colossus, Ghost, Hyperion and Invisible Woman. Again, the last 2 champions you'll be facing are probably the toughest on the path. Stealth Suit Spidey, Stealth Suit Spidey is a key component in taking down Invisible Woman. He absolutely wrecks her, especially if he's one of the pre-fight abilities that stops him missing. For Hyperion, you can use Morningstar to reduce the power gain, or people like Magic, Doctor Doom or Voodoo. They work all really well. You can use Symbiote Supreme as well if you want. He does work exceptionally well with the stagger effects, and as does Clairvoyant. Venom the Duck and Venom are also prime choices, as they are great with the class matchups. And we've also got Venom the Duck, who will absolutely destroy this Colossus with his toxic armor, much like in Chapter 1. It is a lot of fun if you choose to use him, and I would recommend that. So moving finally on to the boss, it is the toughest boss in the whole Variant 5. So we've got a big ass Venom here with 300% health, Enhanced Special 2, Anamensis, or however the hell you say that, Energize 1, Buff Duration, Mystic Ward, and Outlast. So be careful with this fight. If you get him to an SP2, you will be wrecked. He does have that big ass jump. If you're not adept at evading it, then it's lights out. He does hit like a truck. So the number one champion I have found to use on this fight is Magic. You just dodge a couple of SP1s and then lock him down with an SP2. I have heard great things about Voodoo and his power draining. You've also got Doom's power draining ability, and then you can also use Morningstar or even Symbiote Supreme. They do work well. You just need to avoid the SP1s and be careful not to push to an SP2. So overall, this Variant 5 compared to other ones is pretty straightforward, especially for initial completion. There are a couple of trickier paths in 100% completion. We'll get to them in the next guide. Overall, I hope you guys find this guide helpful and not too challenging of a piece of content. Good luck guys in your initial completion and 100%, and I will catch you in the next one. All the best.